Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Fairy Tail episode 295. When we last left off, Brandish had been captured by Fairy Tail, and the rest of the continent was kind of gearing up for the next stage of the battle after Ichiya enlisted the rest of the continent. But Natsu, ever the impatient one, ran off to meet Zeref head-on, revealed his awesome new form of Fire Dragon King, and very nearly beat Zeref, but he did not. What would have been his penultimate attack left Zeref, as we see at the start of this episode, very nearly dead. Both Natsu and Zeref recognize that one more attack will kill Zeref. I've always been a little hesitant about that. As I mentioned in my review last week, the whole idea of the power of someone who is dead could kill him has never really made a whole lot of sense to me. And it doesn't actually kill him, because we see at the end of the scene with Natsu and Zeref, the Fire Dragon King mode fully goes away. It's gone. Before all that happens, Natsu learns the truth. That he was born 400 years ago, died, is Zeref's brother, for one thing, died with their parents, is END, and that Zeref, Anna Heartfilia, who I think this is her first full appearance. She was mentioned last week. I think is the first time she's ever mentioned, except in the anime, the first episode, we do see a glimpse of her. When that is, we don't quite get a good feel if that's in the past or not, as I recall. But yeah, Natsu learns a bunch of really shocking things for him. We already know most of this stuff. We did not know specifically that the dragons and Anna and Zeref had sent the Dragon Slayers 400 years into the future. That's all new information. But, good on Fairy Tail for not treating most of that like a big plot twist, given that we've known about that for quite some time. The END reveal was, at the end of the second anime 3 years ago or so. We learned that Natsu was Zeref's brother back in the episode 8 of this season. And yeah, but what I do want to talk about, though, we need to talk about that sideways camera when Natsu finds out that he's END. Even though we all know this, Natsu does not. And so instead of playing up with some big plot twist for the audience, the camera, by showing the entire screen sideways, shows Natsu's life flipping over. Everything he knows has changed. He's not a human. He's a demon created by Zeref. He's 400 years old. And instead of doing Luke in Empire Strikes Back, the whole no when he finds out who his father is, Natsu stays pretty restrained while Zeref tells him everything. After that, he goes no, I'm fucking not, until Zeref blasts a hole through the Book of END and Natsu collapses in pain. But honestly, the whole reveal was really well done. I really, really love the whole perspective shift when the camera shifts sideways. But yeah, then after we find out Zeref gets to deliver even more backstory. There's a lot of backstory that goes into this arc. First with Zeref's past, and Mavis's past, and now with Natsu's past. And I think this is really the last bit of backstory that plays directly into the arc as a whole. It's not the last bit of backstory, period, but I think that backstory doesn't really affect the overarching plot of Alvarez. It will affect some smaller plots, but we'll talk about that when we get there in 3 months or so, probably. We're a good way out from that plot line. But anyway, this also happens to be one of the more well-foreshadowed bits of backstory, at the very least in Natsu and Gijil's case, because there's plenty of evidence that a whole bunch of this plotline Mashima did not really have thought out going into the beginning of Fairy Tail. But I do think the Dragon Slayers being from 400 years ago was thought out from the very beginning, because if you think all the way back to the Loxus arc, there are the runes that Loxus has freed put on the entrance to the building where they're all in. That I don't think is the guild hall, but it's somewhere. Might be. There's no one over 80 years old can leave the building. And it stops Makarov, of course, because he's over 80. But it also stops Natsu and Gijil. And it's never explained. It's never explicitly stated at any point. The series does not come back and oh, that's why the rune thing. But it is the reason, because they were technically 400 years old. Yeah. Anyway, so Natsu now knows all the details of the 400-year plan, and then Zeref drops the bombshell that if Zeref dies, so do all the demons of the books of Zeref, which includes Natsu. Natsu now knows, but Natsu does not care. He's going to be the one to, even if he's the one to die to save Ishgar, he's going to do it. He's going to kill Zeref. But Happy, ever the greatest little cat around, I love him, stops Natsu the last second, even though it, like, burns his paws. And I did recently see, a discussion of that little bit, about, like, whether or not Happy made the right choice, in saving Natsu and saving Zeref. And I think he definitely did. I think it was the AMN's review, talked about this. And I'm definitely in agreement with that. Their argument was that, even if Zeref had died, the 12 who are still, like, fiercely loyal to Zeref would have just fought harder, and they would have had no Natsu. And so would not have gone well for Ishgar, even if Zeref was not around. So yeah. Also, it touches in with the themes of the series of not letting your friends die and being there for them. So yeah, Happy absolutely made the right choice in saving Natsu. But given that Natsu did not kill him, Zeref is now free of all hesitation and is heading towards Fairy Tail, and there's not a whole lot we can do to stop him because the Fire Dragon King mode is gone. Meanwhile, that's really most of what I have to say about Natsu in this episode. I'll talk a little bit at the very end about what we end the episode on. But the rest of what I'm going to be talking about is everyone else. While this is all going on, we see the other battles have started or are about to start. Mermaid Heel and Lamia Scale are both in Harjian to fight Demaria Wall and Nineheart. They, going into this episode, have not really advanced very far from where we saw them last week. They will by the end, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The northern forces of Sabretooth and Blue Pegasus are all falling to the mysterious Bloodman. We don't find out too much about what he's doing, but some random Sabretooth guy, like, coughs up blood and his eyes are, like, bleeding, and he falls over as Bloodman approaches. We don't get any info on that, though. That's really all we see of the North in this episode. But also, the four gods of Ishgar are standing against August, Jacob, and God Serena. We will see about that fight whenever it happens. It's, all the strongest characters in the world besides Jacob, because we don't know much about Jacob right now. I do, but I'm not going to talk about Jacob right now. Anyway, meanwhile, back in Magnolia, Marin has snuck into Brandish's cell as a result of Laws of the Area, I think is his magic power. And I like the way they cast Marin's face in shadow. Like, throughout all of it, either there's a shot where we see both Brandish and Marin in the frame, and Marin's face is, like, completely black because we can't see any of it, or right after that, we only see his mouth. We don't see his eyes. It has this whole, like, air of kind of foreboding to Marin before he, gets down and starts strangling Brandish. Which is really all we see of them this episode. Though the preview kind of does reveal that Brandish is not going to die right here. More on that in a bit. Anyway, we spend the rest of the episode back in Harjian. And for an adaptation choice, I'm really upset with because it's really funny in the manga. So in the manga, like we see in the anime, Wall starts blasting all the forces, all of the Ishgarians, is that the proper term? I don't know. With his missiles. And when Beth is hit by Wall's missiles, Beth is a little, like, country farm girl in Mermaid Heel, we just see the explosion. We don't see her get blown away in this chapter, and in the manga. And it's the last time she appears in the entire series. The last appearance we have of Beth is her getting blown up by Wall as another Mermaid Heel member, like, calls her name. So, the assumption has always been that Mashima just fucking murdered Beth out of nowhere. No build-up, no reaction, she just dies. Which is really funny when you think about how much everyone loves to lambaste Mashima for never killing anyone off, and he just, like, fucking murders Beth out of nowhere. It's always something that I thought was really funny. But this episode doesn't let us do that because, no, the anime has to show that she lived, and she's commenting on the Demaria and Kagura fight, because we can't see someone get blown up. I don't know. It's a really stupid moment. The whole, like, Beth dying randomly is kind of dumb, I admit, but it's something that I always thought was just absolutely wild. Anyway, Kagura faces off against Demaria. It lasts about 5 seconds before Demaria slashes her kimono to shreds without even moving. Thankfully, the anime does add like the bandages to like cover her boobs. I don't think the manga has that. So it's less of Mashima's bullshit, which the anime has definitely been in on removing Mashima's like random fan service, both with Lucy's towel after the bath scene, in her fight with Brandish, a few episodes ago, and then here again. But anyway, the episode ends as Happy is carrying Natsu back to Magnolia and notices that Natsu is unconscious. So yeah, that's how the episode ends. This episode was great. Like, no lie, the episode was phenomenal. Like, sure, Beth did not die, which is always one of my favorite random fairy tale things. After, like, so many years of Mashima getting mocked for never killing anyone off, he just, like, murdered Beth and didn't call any attention to it. It's just so funny to me. It's so random. It's so weird. It's so just kind of there. But it was something I always really, like... It was a random trivia bit I always loved just knowing. But nope, it's not a thing anymore. But whatever. That's such a whatever thing. Natsu finding out the truth of his past was great. Like, I as I've said in the video, earlier in the video, I love them. They just didn't try to act like it was a big reveal. It was something we already knew. There was no reason to like make it seem like a plot twist, but instead they chose to give us a look at Natsu's headspace. That was just an inspired choice. I do not know if those perspective shifts were in the manga or not. Beyond that, it's just more setup of how outmatched Ishgar is, which is good, but, like, we haven't really had any real fights with the other groups, you know. The North barely advances at all. The fight, I think, is the East is where, the Four Gods are. We're getting baby steps to that fight. And then the West, where we do get some development in the Battle of Hargion, but it's not a whole lot. But you know what? That Natsu part more than makes up for it. But next time, we get the Layla Brandish backstory we need to make Brandish jump up the popularity rankings. So I'm going to leave this video off here. Hope you all enjoyed the episode and the video. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass and I'll see you in the future. Bye!